Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to today's meeting of the Assembly Committee on Growth and Infrastructure. Would the committee secretary please call the roll?
Assembly members Backus. Brown May. Carter.
Present.
Dickman. Gallant. Gurr. Karas. Moore. Wynn. Urick. Chair Watts.
And I'm here. Thank you. Please mark Assemblymember Karas present when she arrives. We have two bills on our agenda for hearing today, as well as a work session. Just a few housekeeping items before we get started. Please silence your electronic devices if you have any. If you do plan to speak today, please sign in at the table in the back. Provide a business card to our committee staff if you have one. If you would like to provide testimony or public comment via phone today, dial 888-475-4499. When prompted, enter the meeting ID 840-216-53821, and then press pound. We will take public comment at the end of today's meeting. You can find that call information on our agendas, which are posted on the website. Just so that everyone has a lay of the land, we are going to proceed through our work session first. Then we are going to hear AB 486 followed by AB 524. Also, we will not be considering Assembly Bill 46 or Assembly Bill 529 during our work session today. And now, seeing that we have all members present, we will begin our work session. So I will turn it over to our policy analyst, Ms. Latham, to walk us through the document, starting with Assembly Bill 296.
Thank you, Chair. For the record, Keely Latham, Policy Analyst with the Legislative Council Bureau. A reminder that as nonpartisan staff, I cannot advocate for or against any measure that this committee will consider. Assembly Bill 296 revises various provisions relating to motor vehicles. The bill is sponsored by Assemblymember Watts and was heard in this committee on March 11th. Assembly Bill 296 requires the DMV to offer installment loans for initial or renewal registration of a vehicle through a contracted licensed installment lender if the DMV offers such services electronically. The bill also authorizes the voluntary use of digital license plates and provides related provisions. AB 296 removes the expiration date for the ongoing pilot program that collects data on annual miles traveled by certain vehicles. There's one amendment proposed by Assemblymember Watts to clarify the DMV may charge any of the fees associated with traditional license plates for the digital license plates, but not additional fees. Requires the full balance of fees and taxes be provided upfront to the department for any contract. Sets requirements for rates and fees related to the installment loans. Clarifies installment loans are only available when the total amount financed is $250 or more. And allows a provider contracted with the DMV under certain provisions of the bill to apply for licensure and conduct the business of making loans at a place of business located outside the state. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Members, any questions on this bill? Seeing none, I would accept a motion to amend and do pass Assembly Bill 296.
So moved.
I have a motion from Assemblymember Nguyen, a second from Assemblymember Backus. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed, nay? Motion carries. I will take the floor statement on that bill. Thank you. We'll now move on to Assembly Bill 402.
Keely Latham with LCB for the record. Assembly Bill 402 authorizes the installation and use of automated traffic enforcement systems in temporary traffic control zones. The bill sponsors Assemblymember Torres Fawcett, and the bill was heard on March 25th. Assembly Bill 402 allows the Department of Transportation, local authorities, and regional transportation commissions to install and use automated systems for speed enforcement in a temporary traffic control zone when workers are physically present, and provides related provisions. There's one amendment proposed by Assemblymember Torres Fawcett to enforce infractions of 10 miles per hour or more over the posted temporary speed limit, clarify procedures for the issuance and delivery of the civil infraction citations, extends the time to respond to a related citation to 120 days, requires posted signage and speed feedback signs, prohibits per citation contracts, adds provisions concerning the data and pictures collected by the system, including that the data cannot be sold, transferred, or transmitted, require that money collected by these citations exceeding the cost of operating the system be used to fund public infrastructure. Add that citations must not exceed $200 and the bond to challenge this citation must not exceed $100. Add that entities implementing a system for the first time must make a public announcement and conduct a public awareness campaign at least 30 days before commencing enforcement, and specifies that this is a 4-year pilot program that will sunset in 2029. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Ms. Latham. I know that was a lengthy amendment. Members, any questions on Assembly Bill 402? Seeing none, I would accept a motion to amend and do pass AB 402. I have a motion from Vice Chair Carter, a second from Assemblymember Nguyen. Any discussion on that motion? Assemblymember Dickman.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. While I certainly appreciate and agree with what is trying to be accomplished with these, especially the two traffic enforcement bills today, I completely disagree with the method based on the basic tenets of our legal system. Due process, the right to face your accuser, innocent until proven guilty. These bills force you to be guilty until you prove yourself innocent, so I have to be a no. Thank you.
Thank you. Any additional remarks, questions? Seeing none. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed, nay?
Nay.
So I have a nay from Assemblymember Dickman. That motion carries. And I will assign that floor statement to Assemblymember Torres Fawcett. We'll move on to Assembly Bill 439.
Keely Latham with LCB for the record. Assembly Bill 439 revises provisions concerning the purchase or acquisition of certain unmanned aerial vehicles or other related equipment and services under certain circumstances. The bill is sponsored by Assemblymember Cole and was heard in this committee on March 20th. Assembly Bill 439 authorizes certain entities to purchase or acquire unmanned aerial vehicles or related equipment and services from businesses or entities on a list established by the Department of Public Safety, which otherwise prohibits these agencies from doing such business with these entities. This exemption only applies if any related collected data is stored and maintained exclusively within the United States and is not accessible to any third party, which must be insured by the department before the purchase or acquisition, unless the determination is waived by the department. There's one amendment proposed by Assemblymember Cole to exempt U.S. government entities from the restriction on third-party access to the data collected by the business or entity. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Members, any questions on this bill? Seeing none, I would accept a motion to amend and do pass Assembly Bill 439. I have a motion from Assemblymember Nguyen, a second from, I'll take it from Assemblymember Urick. Any discussion on this motion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed, nay? Motion carries. And I'll assign that floor statement to Assemblymember Cole. We'll now move on to Assembly Bill 446.
Keely Latham, LCB for the record. Assembly Bill 446 revises provisions relating to transportation. The bill is sponsored by Assemblymember Carter and was heard in this committee on April 1st. Assembly Bill 446 addresses various safety and operational regulations for railroad companies and railroad contract carriers in Nevada. There's one amendment proposed by Assemblymember Carter to limit the provisions of sections 1, 2, 3, and 6 of this bill to apply only to Class 1 or Class 2 companies, limit train length for Class 1 or Class 2 railroad companies to 7,500 feet rather than 8,500 feet, requires the installation and maintenance of hot box detectors not less than every 20 miles rather than every 10 miles along each main line owned or operated by Class 1 or Class 2 companies, and removes the prohibition of a stationary rail car or train from being placed on a portion of a railroad that is within 1,500 feet of a railroad grade crossing. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Ms. Latham. Members, any questions on this? Okay, seeing none, I would accept a motion to amend and do pass Assembly Bill 446. I have a motion from Assemblymember Nguyen, a second from Vice Chair Carter. Any discussion on this motion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed, nay?
Nay.
And can you just raise your hands for me? Thank you. I have nays from Assemblymember Gallant, Assemblymember Urick, Assemblymember Gurr, and Assemblymember Dickman. That motion does carry. I will assign the floor statement to Vice Chair Carter. We'll now move on to Assembly Bill 458.
Keely Latham, LCB, for the record. Assembly Bill 458 revises provisions governing energy. The bill is sponsored by Assemblymember Watts and was heard in this committee on April 1st. Assembly Bill 458 revises provisions relating to solar-powered affordable housing systems in Nevada, authorizing users of such systems to participate in net metering and requiring specific provisions be included in utility tariffs and contracts related to such systems, in addition to other provisions. The bill also revises the criteria to participate in an expanded solar access program and adds certain rate reductions for low-income residential customers who are supported with certain funding. There are 3 amendments proposed. The first, proposed by Assemblymember Watts, refines the definition of net metering credits, adds a new section to extend certain public works employment wage and apprenticeship programs to construction contracts financed by state or local government, even if that work would not qualify as a public work under the general definition. Provides that the deceptive trade practice statutes apply to related contracts and work where applicable. Provides that the contractor requirements for residential photovoltaic systems in statute apply to related contracts and work where applicable. Revises the effective date and requires any tariffs to be filed by December 31st, 2025. The second amendment attached is proposed by the Nevada Clean Energy Fund, or NSEF, and requires that an application submitted by an owner or operator of a solar-powered affordable housing system be accompanied with documentation demonstrating that the system is part of a qualified multifamily housing property. Makes various revisions to subsection 3 of section 9, including requirements related to initial solar tariff applications, allowed annual updates from the utility system owners, choice to direct unallocated net metering credits to either their own account or a common area account, and provisions related to credits from vacant units. And finally, this amendment requires landlords related to notice provided to existing tenants before installation of a solar system to also provide notice to new tenants of the same information. The last amendment attached is proposed by NV Energy and removes the requirement for regulations adopted by the PUCN to provide a plan for community participation related to community-based solar resources, requires the PUCN to meet energy-saving requirements that are required for funding related to NSEF's Solar for All program, and removes certain requirements from the application and selection process for low-income eligible customers, as well as requirements for continuously enrolled customers, retains language that the original bill deleted to establish requirements for a fully bundled residential customer to declare that they cannot install solar energy systems at their residence, and includes energy storage resources in the definition of community-based solar resource. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Ms. Latham. That was also quite a bit.
Yes, thanks to you.
But it was all good work. All right, members, any questions on the multiple amendments to this bill? Seeing none, I would accept a motion to amend and do pass Assembly Bill 458. I've got a motion from Vice Chair Carter. Second, was that from Assemblymember Karras? All right. Any discussion on that motion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed, nay? Motion carries. I will take the floor statement for that bill. And that moves us to Assembly Bill 527.
Keely Latham, LCB, for the record. Assembly Bill 527 authorizes the installation and use of school bus infraction detection systems on school buses. The bill was heard in this committee on April 3rd. Assembly Bill 527 authorizes a board of trustees of a school district to authorize the installation and use of a school bus infraction detection system in school buses to enforce laws against overtaking or passing a stopped school bus, and provides related provisions. Violations are civil infractions punishable by an administrative fine. The one attached amendment was proposed by Assemblymember Brown May. The amendment authorizes school districts to contract with third-party vendors to install and administer a school bus infraction detection system, requires school districts that are implementing a system for the first time to conduct a 30-day public awareness campaign and only issue warnings during that time, establishes manual or automated mailing records as admissible evidence for civil infraction hearings, and provides that such recordings are evidence of the mailing and service of citation, requires to the extent possible avoidance of recording vehicle occupants, prohibits dismissal of citations due to such recordings, and allows owners to rebut driver presumption, requires recorded images to show stop arm activation and flashing red light signals, adds certain requirements and restrictions on the collection, remittance, and use of the fines collected for violations, creates a rebuttal presumption in certain circumstances, and provides that liability must be determined by a preponderance of evidence. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Members, any questions on this item? Seeing none, I would accept a motion to amend and do pass Assembly Bill 527. I have a motion from Vice Chair Carter. I have a second from Assemblymember Nguyen. Any discussion on this motion? Assemblymember Dickman.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I will be a no for the same reasons I stated earlier. Thank you.
All right, appreciate that. Nice and succinct. Any other discussion on this motion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed, nay?
Nay.
I have a nay from Assemblymember Dickman. That motion carries, and I will sign that floor statement to Assemblymember Brown-May. Okay, that concludes our work session for today, and we will now move into our bill hearings. So I will open the hearing now on Assembly Bill 486, which makes various changes related to wildlife. Welcome to the Committee on Growth and Infrastructure. Chair Anderson. Whenever you and your co-presenter are ready, please begin.
Thank you, Chair Watts. Good afternoon, Chair Watts, Vice Chair Carter, and members of the Growth and Infrastructure Committee. My name is Natha Anderson, and it is my honor to represent Assembly District 30. I also am the Chair of Natural Resources. I am joined today by Nick Calero of the Pew Charitable Trust to present AB 486. AB 486 I've affectionately dubbed a platypus bill because when you take a look at all the things that are in there, there's a little bit of revenue involved, there's a little bit of natural resources involved, there's a little bit of growth and infrastructure involved. So we just kind of do a little bit of everything in this platypus bill. I could go into details about so many successes that the wildlife crossings have had across our state, because that's really what this bill deals with. AB 486 is trying to figure out a way to help to continue to fund and expand these crossings. I believe Chair Watts has been not only involved, has spearheaded this over the past few sessions. So I can just imagine the number of robust conversations and different committee items that have happened in this room regarding those wildlife crossings. The numerous crossings that actually happen in Elko currently that we have been able to utilize, which includes 3 overpasses, have actually been incredibly successful with hundreds of thousands of mule deer utilizing these crossings. And we do have evidence if you need that information. But this in turn has helped with reducing vehicle collisions, likely saving human lives, as well as time and money for those who travel along these highways. To replicate the success in other areas, NDOT, or Nevada Department of Transportation, has created a list of about 30 priorities. We need to figure out how to fund those. As we all know, we are facing some budget issues. But if we want to plan for the future, part of that is also how to fund it. To replicate, investments in these priorities will have an initial cost, but will have a significant return of investments, both in matching dollars and in cost reductions in crashes. Not just for our state, but for the people that actually travel along these highways. AB 486 is quite frankly doing one thing. It is proposing to increase the existing tire recycling fee of $1 per tire to $2 per tire. This revenue would be dedicated to the state wildlife crossing account. That's all it is. With the chair's permission, I would like to hand it over to Mr. Calero to provide just a little bit further information regarding the wildlife crossings.
Thank you. Good afternoon. Chair Watts, members of the committee. For the record, my name is Nick Calero. That's Callero, and I am a senior officer with the Pew Charitable Trusts. As a reminder, Pew's U.S. Conservation Program collaborates with policymakers, tribes, stakeholders to advance common sense solutions that address the impacts of a changing environment on nature and communities. And the identification and protection of wildlife migration corridors is a key component of our work. I want to thank the committee for allowing me to speak today. I promise to keep my remarks brief, as I know many of you are already quite familiar with the issue that we're talking about today. I want to start by echoing Pew's support and the support expressed today by Assemblymember Anderson on Assembly Bill 486, and I want to emphasize a few specific points and offer Pew's unique perspective, which has been gained through working on this issue across the entire Intermountain West, where state investments in new wildlife crossing infrastructure is unmistakable. On that note, in just a few short years, propelled by new science and a new federal grant program, several western states, including California, Colorado, New Mexico, Oregon, Utah, Wyoming, and even Nevada, have enacted bipartisan legislation investing millions of dollars in wildlife crossing infrastructure to reduce wildlife vehicle collisions and connect habitat. These efforts have garnered wide-ranging support from sporting groups, businesses, insurers, first responders, and even energy interests. As an example, Utah recently appropriated $20 million to address wildlife vehicle collisions, and New Mexico's legislature just a few weeks ago passed a bill dedicating $50 million towards wildlife crossings, and that bill is expected to be signed by the governor any day now. Here in Nevada, with the successful establishment of Nevada's wildlife crossing account through Assembly Bill 112 last legislative session, passing this bill, Assembly Bill 486, would leverage this state and regional momentum and establish one of the very first dedicated funding mechanisms for wildlife crossings in the nation. And lastly, I want to emphasize a point which I'm confident that every committee member will agree with, and that is that during times of tight state budgets, it's more important than ever to prioritize fiscally responsible investments. And wildlife crossings are just that. They are smart financial decisions for Nevada. According to NDOT, more than 500 wildlife vehicle collisions are reported each year, costing the state north of $20 million. However, there's an important note to these figures in that wildlife vehicle collisions are recognized as significantly underreported. Many states estimate that fewer than 10% of animal collisions are actually officially documented. And these accidents have a cost. NDOT's own research in 2022 found that the average national cost per collision with a deer is around $20,000 per collision, near $75,000 per collision with an elk, and north of $110,000 for a collision with a moose. And I'll just note that those figures are provided in the fact sheet that we handed out to committee members today, if you want to reference those. Given these high costs, it's very easy to deduce that properly placed wildlife crossings with associated fencing that funnel animals across busy highways can quickly offset their initial expense by reducing the need for emergency services, medical response, property repairs, and the loss of wildlife. In closing, I just want to harken back to a point that Assemblymember Anderson made a few minutes ago, and that is regarding the simplicity of this bill that we're talking about today. And she's right, this bill is simple. This is a bill that is asking for the occasional $1 to potentially prevent a wildlife vehicle collision in the future. It's a bill that's asking for the occasional $1 to connect some extremely important habitat across the state of Nevada. And it's a bill that's asking for the occasional $1 to lend a hand to Nevada's mule deer herds, which could really use some help these days. This bill punches above its weight, and I'll leave it at that, and happy to answer any questions the chair or committee members may have. Thank you.
Thank you both so much for the presentation. Members, any questions for our presenters? Appreciate you bringing forward. I'm certainly a fan of wildlife crossings. Assemblymember Dickman, go ahead.
I'm a fan of wildlife crossings too, but I have to say, if I owned a semi, how did you put it? The occasional $1? would be a whole lot of $1. My family owned a logging business, and we had logging trucks, and you go through lots and lots of tires. So the largest burden would actually be on truckers.
If, may I? Thank you, Chair. Through the chair to Assemblymember Dickman, I think there was an implied question of how would the trucking industry handle this, I believe was the implied question. So I have been in discussions with that industry, and they've been robust, they've been good. Absolutely. And I understand when they come up here to say that they're against it and the reasoning behind it, because that's exactly it. How do you handle when you've got a 18-wheeler and the trucks have to get those new tires? Those are not like right away though. Those are few and like every few years you've got to do that, although I'm not sure about that time frame. And so it appears from your way you're reacting that is not the experiences you've had. More importantly, however, it is helping the trucking industry by actually cleaning up the highway in a quicker fashion. So respect that there will be differences, but if there are less car accidents and less accidents that kind of, I guess, hinder the ability to move quickly on the highway, that does actually help in other ways as well. That stated, I want to make sure it's also clear, there is a possible amendment that is going to be brought forward that it was just discussed in the last, I think, 3, 4, maybe 5 hours. And so I do consider this amendment to be friendly. And that might actually be able to help some of those areas, not necessarily so though. Here.
Thank you. Good note about oftentimes I think folks who do not have fleets kind of think about just their personal vehicles, but it is a good reminder that there are folks that are operating fleets with significant numbers of vehicles and in some cases a lot of wear as well. So, Assemblymember Gurr, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Brings up some thought, their testimony or their presentation brought up some thoughts that I had a month ago and talked to them about a little bit, but you stated somewhere north of 500 vehicle wildlife accidents on an annual basis in Nevada. Can you tell me what kind of wildlife are involved in those accidents? Guess what species would be a better word, but, yeah.
Mr. Chair, Assemblyman Gurr, what I know is the majority of the.
And your name for the record.
Excuse me, Nick Calero for the record. The majority of the wildlife vehicle collisions in the state of Nevada are with mule deer. As far as the specific breakdown, I would have to refer to a representative from Nevada Department of Transportation.
It looks like we have a phone a friend.
Absolutely we do. Assemblymember Anderson for the record, and I'm so sorry I forgot to do that earlier for Assemblymember Dickman's question. I've asked Nova Simpson of NDOT to come up to help phone a friend, thank God. But I also want to make sure it's clear that NDOT is not taking a position on this. She just simply has an incredible amount of knowledge when it comes to this area. So Ms. Simpson, if you'd like to add to this.
Yes, Nova Simpson for the record with NDOT Environmental Services, NOVA-SIMPSON. As far as those collisions, it is believed that it's about 10% of what's actually happening on our roadways. The majority of them are with mule deer, but when we consider all the other species, we also have cattle, horses, elk, pronghorn. Pretty much everything on the landscape is included in that, and the estimated cost is around that $20 million per year. Just with Nevada's wildlife.
Currently, how many proposed crossings are there and what are they for?
Nova Simpson for the record. So we have a variety of crossings that we have been investigating across the state. The one that is, we currently have a wildlife crossing pilot program bill from the Federal Highway Administration is for desert tortoise in the south. So that one is more of a conservation measure due to mitigation requirements as we go through their area and habitat. But there's a variety of other projects around the state looking at just fencing, such as the Dumpy Hills along Interstate 80, which would help with mule deer. We're actually getting ready to start a research project at Lake Tahoe Spooner Summit, which would look at a variety of species that can be found at the summit there, as well as looking at human activity, as that's a hot spot for recreationalists.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. I can definitely attest to the need for that Spooner Summit crossing. It's tricky going over that one when you're hiking the Tahoe Rim Trail, and probably if you're a deer as well. And there's some great crossings I know in Assemblymember Gurr's district that already exist to help with mule deer. I think both of us know how important it is to do everything we can to try and help that population, as well as some of the literal impacts that happen when we don't have those crossings in place. So I believe next we have a question from Assemblymember Gallant.
Thank you, Chair. Just prompted the question, the fencing. So how tall is the fencing gonna be? Because deers are quite an arc that they can make.
Nova Simpson for the record. Yes, so it depends on the species, but for large mammals, the average height is 8 foot.
So is that what the fences will be?
Nova Simpson for the record. Yes, wildlife fencing at 8 feet is what we would put for deer, elk, those kind of species. And they do have a patina to blend in. I don't know if anybody's familiar with Verdi, but we just finished a big project out there. And so that's a fencing project that it will direct animals into existing structures. And it has dropped the collisions, to my knowledge, substantially. I haven't received any reports since that completed at the end of 2023.
Follow up? Go ahead. Okay. So what does that do with the migration of the deer and animals? Because, food sources, they need to roam. So curious about that.
Nova Simpson for the record. Yes, so the fencing directs the movement to safe crossing opportunities. So in the case of Verdi, we didn't add any new structures, but we had large bridges that essentially act as a multi-use structure now, pushing the animals underneath the interstate there.
Thank you.
Thank you. Great question. We're getting some good education here. And I guess I'll just ask a quick follow-up on that. And as you're planning and kind of designing these projects, you're looking at some of the instances of collisions, and you're looking at, when possible, when there's some kind of telemetric data of where, because there's already migration corridors that are often going across those roadways, and so you use some of that information in figuring out where to locate a crossing, and then to use that fencing to help direct the kind of ones on the outside towards the safe space. Is that correct?
Nova Simpson for the record, that is exactly correct.
Great, thank you. Members, any other questions? All right, that was a very robust discussion. Thank you all. We'll now move to testimony in support of Assembly Bill 486. Anyone wishing to provide testimony in support here in Carson City or down in Las Vegas, please come forward. Looks like we've got a few extra, so as you finish, please leave your seat and open it up for the next person. Whenever you're ready, please go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. My name is Tom Clark. I'm here on behalf of the Nevada Outdoor Business Coalition. The NVOBC is basically the Chamber of Commerce for the outdoor recreation industry. And Mr. Chair, we've supported many times these bills on the wildlife crossing simply because of the importance of the safety of the highway. We have a lot of recreational drivers, people that are going to visit the places that are beautiful in our state. And these types of controls keep them from not colliding with the animals, which is fantastic. I think it's important to put on the record too that not every instance creates a collision. Many times that vehicle swerves, misses the animal, but ends up rolling itself 2 or 3 times through the desert because they overcorrect to get back on the highway. So it may not be reported as an animal-related incident, but the people that are in that vehicle are sure sorry that that animal did run in front of them. So for those reasons, Mr. Chairman, we support this legislation. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair Watts, members of the committee, Paul Young, on behalf of Board of Wildlife Commissioners. We'd like to thank Chair Anderson and the Committee on Natural Resources for bringing this bill. We're in full support. As everyone's noted, it's a public safety issue as well as the wildlife issue. And Nevada was a leader in starting, one of the western states in starting wildlife crossings. And as was noted before by the Department, by NDOT, we are 30 short and would like to continue the funding on this. So thank you.
Mr. Chairman, committee members, my name is Chris Costin, C-O-S-T-O-N. I'm here on behalf of the Coalition for Nevada's Wildlife and the Sierra Front Muley Fanatic Foundation. We are in support of AB 486. With the increased funding and additional wildlife crossings, we will reduce wildlife and vehicle collisions and increase wildlife habitat connectivity. These crossings will also have a direct and positive impact on our struggling mule deer herds by reestablishing migratory routes and reducing further loss in these high congested crossing areas. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair and members of the committee. For the record, my name is Andrew McCam. I'm actually here in two capacities. One is the Executive Director of the Nevada Franchise Auto Dealers Association, as well as representing the Great Basin Wildlife Conservancy. With respect to the latter, that is a fairly recently formed NGO, which the primary mission is to advocate for the advancement and promotion of the North American model of wildlife conservation, which its main tenet is that wildlife is held in public trust. There's no doubt about it that wildlife crossings meet that goal to the T. In the capacity from the Franchise Auto Dealers Association, I guess from GW, the Great Basin Wildlife Conservancy as well, as there's no doubt that this is a public safety issue. And if you've never seen one of the wildlife crossings in action, they're pretty phenomenal. I was talking to Mr. Young during the testimony in the wildlife crossing about 30 miles north of Wells on Highway 93. I was coming back from an elk hunt, and the amount of mule deer that were going across the highway along with a herd of pronghorn antelope was pretty phenomenal. And the fact that the animals can get from point A to point B safely is really a joy to watch. So we enthusiastically support this. There was a reference on a conceptual amendment that's coming. And to somewhat break protocol, Mr. Chair, we support that as well. Thank you.
Hello, Chair and members of the committee. My name is Tristan St. Denis. That's TRYSTINST.DENIS. I am the Policy Associate for the Nevada Conservation League. We've submitted a letter on Nellis with various other organizations and businesses highlighting some of the many benefits of wildlife crossings. We believe that Nevada's iconic wildlife and open spaces make it a great place for both people and wildlife to call home, and NCL is proud to have worked on the issue of wildlife connectivity for many years. We've seen the great work done by NDOT and NDOW to work together and tackle this critical issue, but they need additional resources. The additional funding for the Nevada Wildlife Crossings account proposed in AB 486 will make roads safer for humans and wildlife while saving the state money in the long run. We urge the committee's support. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair and members of the committee. My name is Olivia Tanager. For the record, I'm the director of the Sierra Club's Toyabe chapter. We're here in full support of this measure as well. A lot of my colleagues have spoken very eloquently to the need for this. But one of the biggest issues that we face with our declining wildlife population is habitat fragmentation, and this bill goes a long way to address that issue. So with that, we're in full support, and we urge your support as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Not seeing anyone else coming forward at this time in Carson City. Seeing no one coming forward in Las Vegas, AVH, would anyone like to provide testimony in support of AB 486 by phone?
To testify in support for Assembly Bill 486, please press *9 to take your place in the queue. Caller with the last three digits 177, please press *6 to unmute yourself.
Hello, Chair Watts and members of the Growth and Infrastructure Committee. My name is Jamarion Williams, and I am the Government Affairs Manager for Western Resource Advocates. Western Resource Advocates strongly supports AB 486. AB 486 will provide ongoing funding for the Nevada Wildlife Crossing account. Wildlife crossing has proven to be the most cost-effective way to restore critical migratory wildlife habitat and reduce the risk of collisions between vehicles and wildlife. For these reasons, WRA urges the committee to prioritize the funding of the Nevada Wildlife Crossing account. Thank you.
Hello, this is Russell Coleman. Last name is spelled Kuhlman. I'm the Executive Director for the Nevada Wildlife Federation. I would like to testify in support of this bill. Nevada's sagebrush habitat has declined 70% over the last 30 years, and it's no coincidence that our mule deer populations, once peaked at over 200,000, have also declined to just over 60,000. And a large part of that is due to the aforementioned habitat fragmentation, and wildlife corridors is a tool that we have at our disposal to help mitigate against that. And unfortunately, our wildlife, including mule deer, elk, and antelope, and other species that travel across highways, cannot depend on the fluctuations of funding every other year that our state has to fund projects like this. And that's why we are in support of AB 86 or 486, because it is the innovative thinking that is needed to find ways to fund our wildlife for the future enjoyment of generations and public safety for not only our citizens, but also the tourists that visit our state. Thank you.
Caller with the last three digits 083, please press *6 to unmute yourself. Caller with the last three digits 083, please press *6 to unmute yourself.
Good afternoon, Chair Watts and members of the committee. For the record, my name is Annie Tai, spelled ANNIETHAI. I am a youth fellow for One API in Nevada. One API Nevada is a grassroots nonprofit advocating for policies empowering everyday Asian American, Native Hawaiian, and Pacific Islander Nevadans. I urge the committee to pass AB 486, which will provide ongoing funding for the Nevada Wildlife Crossing account. Wildlife crossings are vital and cost-effective ways to maintain habitat and ecosystems connectivity, protect animals and people from vehicle collisions, and save the state and Nevadans money. Targeted investments in wildlife-friendly transportation infrastructure can make roadways safer for humans and wildlife. As a young student living in Nevada, as well as an avid animal lover, I care deeply about the environment and the future of our state. Investing in wildlife crossings means investing in a future where our communities can coexist more safely and sustainably with the nature around us. Nevada has led the nation in wildlife protection and conservation with 79 designated animal crossings and 6 overpasses. Expanding this infrastructure will enhance public safety and deliver long-term cost savings for the state. Continued investment in wildlife crossings is essential. I respectfully ask the committee to support AB 486 and increase funding for Nevada Wildlife Crossing account to protect both Nevadans and the wildlife that call our state home. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Chair, the public lines are open and working. We have no more callers for support at this time.
Thank you. We'll now move on to testimony in opposition of Assembly Bill 486. Anyone wishing to provide testimony in opposition, either here in Carson City or down in Las Vegas, come forward. Please go ahead whenever you're ready.
Looks like it's just me. Good afternoon, Chair Watts, members of the committee. For the record, I'm Paul Enos. I'm the CEO of the Nevada Trucking Association, and we're here today in opposition of Assembly Bill 486, not because we don't think this is a noble purpose, but because, as was stated earlier, our guys are buying tires 3-4 times a year for a truck. For a 9-axle, you could be buying up to 48 tires. For a typical 18-wheeler, that one truck, you're buying those tires. So, that in addition to all of the other cost increases that our industry, and I think everybody is experiencing, from the cost of fuel to insurance to the truck itself. I mean, we're seeing all of those costs go up. So this would just, be additional to that. But that said, we do believe that this bill does have a noble purpose in terms of preventing these wildlife vehicular collisions. And we do have a conceptual amendment, and I appreciate your indulgence, Mr. Chair, for letting me get this to you late today after, a number of conversations with the bill sponsor and other stakeholders. We really do think that it makes sense when the Nevada Department of Transportation is taking a look at these projects, and currently today there is a litany of things they must consider, for projects over $25 million. The limits of the project, how much it's going to cost, engineering, acquisition of land, the environmental concerns. And we do think it's an appropriate thing when they are in that planning process to take a look at the wildlife vehicular collisions and see if there's an opportunity to mitigate it then. To me, it makes a tremendous amount of sense when they're already out there working on a project to be able to have that additional consideration to put that in while they're out there. So, we can have a more efficient use of our tax dollars. We do think that is a more fiscally, appropriate way to do some of these things. We do believe these crossings work. We like them. We think that this is a good thing. And I am happy to continue conversations, either this legislative session or through the interim on how we can get some dedicated funding moving forward. But we do have that conceptual amendment that would require, as part of the planning process for NDOT, for them to look at these wildlife vehicular collisions. I'm sorry, I'm going to screw that up 18 times from now till the end of session. And see at that point, does it make sense to put this into the project at that time? Thank you for your indulgence, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Enos. Seeing no one else coming forward, either here in Carson City or down in Las Vegas, AVH, would anyone like to provide testimony in opposition to AB 486 by phone?
Chair, we have no callers for opposition at this time.
Thank you. We'll now move on to neutral testimony on Assembly Bill 486. Anyone wishing to provide neutral testimony? We have one person coming forward here. Please proceed whenever you're ready.
Thank you, Chair Watts. Good afternoon, committee members. My name is Joe Harrington. I'm NDOT's Communications Director for the record. That's spelled Harrington. We really want to thank Assemblymember Anderson for working with us on this bill, as well as the conceptual amendment that has been mentioned. We would really like to put on the record that in that conceptual amendment, we would really like to see the cost-benefit analysis if we are also including wildlife related matters, that the threshold for conducting that is changed from projects of $25 million and above to $50 million and above. That $25 million threshold was set by this body back in 2007. We do believe adjusting this would ensure that our finite dollars would really go to ensuring that we are conducting this type of analysis on larger projects that are much more likely to have impacts rather than smaller projects that really have no impact as we are conducting at this time. So we really appreciate your consideration and your time this afternoon.
Thank you very much, Mr. Harrington. Now, I'll just note this is becoming more and more of a growth and infrastructure bill as the hearing progresses. Seeing no one else coming forward in neutral, either here in Carson City or down in Las Vegas, AVH, would anyone like to provide neutral testimony on AB 486 by phone?
Chair, we have no callers for neutral.
All right, would the presenter like to make any closing remarks? Yes, no, maybe, yes.
Nathan Anderson for the record. Thank you so much for hearing this bill. I know that the time is of the essence. The amendments that are being proposed really creates even more of a platypus type of idea, but I do think it's important for us to continue these discussions. So greatly appreciate the time and consideration.
All right, thank you very much. we'll see what we can do with the platypus. Maybe we can get some jackalope horns on there. With that, I will close the hearing on Assembly Bill 486 and open the hearing on Assembly Bill 524, which revises provisions governing motor carriers. All right, hearing's open. Please proceed whenever you're ready.
Thank you, Chair. For the record, Scott Gillis with the Griffin Company. Good afternoon, Chair Watts, Vice Chair Carter, and the committee members. As I just mentioned, here representing Transportation Management Services today, or TMS. TMS is a nationwide company, but they operate in Southern Nevada as T1. I'm here today to present Assembly Bill 524. With me at the table to my far right is the Chief Operating Officer of TMS, Steve Carney, as well as Jeremiah Shirk, who is a consultant for TMS nationwide, sitting to my immediate right. If I could do just a little bit of quick housekeeping to start, Chair. The bill as originally written, it's our proposal to remove completely all the policy changes in that bill. The committee should have in front of them a conceptual amendment, and I'll thank the chair for his indulgence on that. A conceptual amendment which removes all the changes made in the original bill language and replaces it with what would be one singular new section into NRS Chapter 706. Again, keeping with the housekeeping theme, there is a fiscal note on the bill related to Section 2 of the original bill by the Department of Taxation, confirmed with the Department of Taxation, and they said feel free to represent on their behalf that they will be removing that fiscal note if this conceptual amendment is ultimately adopted. So that should be a non-issue going forward. The other piece of housekeeping I want to address up front, I believe the members have the most recent conceptual amendment in front of them. It should be the version that has a Section 5 at the end. The reason we included Section 5 in the last few hours was to clarify with zero ambiguity that what we're intending for this bill to cover when it's ultimately written into a proper statutory form is that it will not apply to limousines or taxi cabs whatsoever. And that is our intent, and that is our hope that everyone will understand. We were not trying to jump into those waters in any way, shape, or form with this bill. So wanted to get those out of the way at the start. So for some brief background, TMS, they're a nationwide transportation company. They provide transportation solutions in various different states. Particularly though, in Las Vegas, they do really special work that's meaningful to this state. They organize bus and motor coach transportation for our largest of large events. For example, TMS has provided transportation for the Electric Daisy Carnival, Formula One Grand Prix. There's a number of others as well. Some of Las Vegas' biggest events. Mr. Carney is going to get into this in a moment here, but at the heart of this is the reality for these large events where sometimes upwards of 500 buses are needed for transportation. EDC is the best example of that. The bulk of those buses have to come from out of state because Southern Nevada does not have the inventory for those states, for those buses and drivers to all come from in-state. That is happening now, that it's been happening for a while. Ultimately, at the heart of this bill is trying to get to some regulatory streamlining in how those groups come onto the state, on board with NTA, provide documentation demonstrating that they are fully registered, fully compliant, fully safe, fully inspected. Really, this bill is getting at the heart of easing that process so that it's more efficient not only for my client, but also the event owners and operators, as well as NTA staff, hopefully, if this bill works as we believe it will. It will also reduce costs when implemented, again, for both not only my client, but also the event organizers. And ultimately, the North Star here with that is trying to make sure that we keep Las Vegas as competitive as possible with these large-scale events in terms of costs and the ease of doing business here. With that said, I will turn it over to Steve Carney, who's going to talk a little bit about exactly what TMS does and the challenges that, the hurdles they face when they come into the state for these events.
Thank you. Stephen Carney for the record. Thank you, Mr. Chair and committee members for letting me speak today. I'm with TMS, T1 Transportation. I'm the Chief Operating Officer. And we're in the business of transporting people at events. And we've been doing that for over 30 years. And I've been with the company for 20 plus of those years. And we do events all throughout the country. We do about 300 events throughout the year. And Nevada is a huge market for us, as you can imagine. And we do events like Electric Daisy Carnival and others. And so the challenges that we're having is, especially in the motor coach industry, for the last several years, the motor coach industry has been impacted, whether it's the lack of drivers or during COVID, about 40% of the market went away entirely. And so the inventory that we've seen has shrunk considerably. And so for events like Electric Daisy Carnival, where they would want 700 buses, if they could, to transport folks for their event, we're unable to do so, unfortunately. And for those events, we try to utilize as many Nevada operators as possible. But there's just not enough inventory in the market. And so what we have to do is we go out and have to source those from out-of-state operators. And so the challenges we face is the documentation process in order to bring those out-of-state operators into Nevada. And we've been working pretty closely with the NTA. I've established a good working relationship with them. And what we're looking to do is try to streamline that documentation process to make it easier for the client owners. You know, it's an extensive cost in order to bring these mega events, as we call them, into the state. And so we're having to, for a size event like that where you're bringing in hundreds of buses, we're starting 3-4 months ahead of time, 10 to 20 people to put together the documentation requirements needed for these short events. Thousands of documents are sent, and so we're hoping that this bill allows us to lessen that, but remain safety as our top priority. We're not trying to eliminate oversight. A lot of the stuff we're trying to eliminate is already being done through the federal level and their requirements, and so we believe this will be helpful, enable, you know, with the cost and even the NTA's time that they have to sort through thousands and thousands of documents for events like EDC. We're hoping that you know, this will allow us to lessen that burden. Thank you.
Thank you again, Scott Gills, for the record. I'll try to get through my comments here as quickly as possible because I don't want to be duplicative of what Mr. Carney just said, but I think it's worth noting, again, a little background. TMS has worked with the Transportation Authority for a number of years now on this process, and, you know, under the leadership of Chair Hartung and Commissioner Groover, the NTA has worked diligently with us to create fixes and streamline this process. It seemed clear to, at least from our perspective, that there were some requirements in law that ultimately tied folks' hands from implementing some of the changes we were all working on. I think, I would say NTA probably acknowledged that to us on more than one occasion. So eventually it became clear that we needed to come to this body and propose a process and hopefully have that adopted by you all. So again, the conceptual amendment in front of you, I acknowledge fully that it came to you late in the process, but it is effectively the result of almost 2 years of work, conversations, deliberations, honestly, sometimes debates with the NTA. Not going to speak for the NTA. Obviously, I believe they'll be testifying in neutral today. Our conversations with them have been very clear that they understand this is a conceptual amendment. We understand that. They'll ultimately want to see what's put into how this would be codified and the mechanics of that before they're I don't know if they will formally support the bill, but get to a place of comfort with it. So just want to make that clear to the committee that those conversations are ongoing, and we're talking to them as late as yesterday, the NTA as well as the Department of Business and Industry. But at the heart of this is, the bill's intent is to further position Nevada to thrive in these large-scale events. And we believe this proposed language in the amendment in front of you, the NTA will get the documentation and confirmation it needs to confirm drivers, operators, and vehicles are compliant with the rules and regulations, ensuring safety to the traveling public that they're going to take carry from these events. We believe the bill will allow the NTA to continue enforcing necessary standards. It will also help reduce staff time and resources needed for processing on these large events. Currently, in the regulatory environment, the process necessitates a minimum of 12 documents per driver bus combination. As Mr. Carney noted, that is often sometimes thousands of pages of documents that need to be provided. For example, the EDC event, for which TMS provides, again, upwards of 500 buses for the transportation needs of that significant event, they can end up requiring almost 25 to 30,000 pages of documentation. Again, the goal of this bill is to streamline that process and make sure that these out-of-state drivers who have received their proper licensing and registration outside the state of Nevada, backed by and based on federal guidelines and federal regulations, can simply more provide those that documentation to the NTA for their permit, their driver permits, as well as their authority to provide transportation for these events. With that, I'll walk through the amendment a little bit, and Jeremiah, I'm looking at you. If there's anything I need to clear up, just nudge me, please. So going to the conceptual amendment in front of you, you'll see that the other sections of the bill that currently exist have all been asked to be removed or repealed, and adding one new section to Chapter 706. The intent of this section is to only apply to fully regulated carriers who are licensed by and in current compliance with all authority regulations, who are entering into short-term leases, so leases of 30 days or less for these events, for the operation of a bus with a provided driver, that they should be exempt from the requirements for the normal licensing of drivers and vehicles, the current process of the MTA, if the following requirements are met. So it's really trying to say if these out-of-state drivers and these out-of-state buses, if they meet this selection of documents that we're putting into state law, then they would satisfy the requirements of the NTA to be permitted for these events. First, subsection 1, the submission of a short-term lease covering any proposed drivers and vehicles that will be utilized during this lease term, or the event term, I think is probably the more colloquial way to put that. The driver's permit for these drivers. I'll jump to little I and little 2I there at the bottom. They'll have to provide evidence of a commercial driver's license from the driver's state of residence. They have to provide evidence of an active United States Department of Transportation issued identification number for the vehicle owner with which that applicant is associated. That's what the driver would provide. At the top of that section, 2A, I want to point out clearly, we put in language notwithstanding the requirement of 706.462 2A. That is the requirement currently in law, which requires a fingerprint from these drivers, whether they're from the state of Nevada or they come from out of state to the state of Nevada, so the NTA can run a background check. We are not touching that section at all. That will still be, the NTA will still be authorized and allowed to take those fingerprints from the drivers. So status quo on fingerprints, status quo on background checks for these drivers. That was a particular request from the NTA. We wanted to make sure that was clear on the record that there's no intent here to have these out-of-state drivers circumvent the fingerprint and background process of the state of Nevada. Moving on to sub 3 is really about the vehicle and the vehicle operation. My client, for example, with these owners, will have to submit a valid proof of the bus vehicle registration from the owner or operator's state of origin, and a submission of the current certificate of information demonstrating they have the insurance coverage required by the NTA, and it references an existing statute within the NTA. With that, I'd like to turn it over to Jeremiah Shirk just to give a little color as to what effectively those documents mean and what's behind them. And when folks bring these to the state, what are they bringing in terms of regulations they've met, inspections they've met, and the federal requirements they've met in another state?
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman and Assembly members. Jeremiah Shirk for the record. To Scott's point, all of these documents are federal regulations that are under the auspices of the Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration and US DOT. And it requires, there are all a number of requirements in the federal CFR 391 related to drivers and also those vehicles that are alluded to here and these requirements here. And so what we're suggesting with this language is that so long as those drivers and operators are valid and accurate related to their federal approvals, then the NTA would accept those documents as they are in their federal form. Each of those vehicles have to go through an annual vehicle inspection, and they also have to go through what's called a 90-day push, which is important in that the emergency doors and exits on those motor coaches are checked every 90 days. The FMCSA and the USDOT are allowed to audit those folks at any moment, at any time. Similarly, the operator or the owner of that vehicle also is doing annual checks on their drivers that have that valid CDL license, with a number of reviews and renewals related to the background of that driver throughout the course of their employment and so on. Additionally, it's also important to note that there's also self-reporting required here at the federal level if anything comes askew from these regulations that is required under that CFR, that folks, either a driver and or an owner-operator of the vehicle, has to report to the FMCSA and USDOT any issues related to those documents, those vehicles, and those drivers. So we believe this language brings Nevada more in line with those federal regulations without the duplicative effort.
Scott Gillis for the record. Thank you, Jeremiah. I think that was helpful. The last piece of the amendment for any use subsection 4, that's really speaking to the fleet size for a particular event. This is, and again, gentlemen, kick me if I'm articulating this incorrectly, but oftentimes in these events when they determine a different number of vehicles that are needed as things evolve throughout the event or prior to the event, there's typically a deviation from the agreement they all receive from the NTA for an increased fleet size. That procedurally, currently my understanding is that deviation requires authority permission. It's almost always given. So this would kind of bake into law that they wouldn't have to go to the NTA for that that deviation to be authorized. Again, this is a topic that they've worked on and communicated with the NTA a number of times over the last few years. And then the very last section, which I alluded to before, section 5, just trying to make it as clear as day that nothing in our conceptual amendment is intended to be construed to apply to the regulation of limos or taxi cabs. We received some calls today from attorneys and representatives of those organizations that they were concerned that this was somehow impacting them. It was somehow creating a different set of rules for us versus them in competition. That's not the case. That's not what we're trying to do. Ultimately, we'll have to work through exactly how to articulate that mechanically into state law if we get to the next step here. But I just want to make clear on the record in the conceptual amendment, this is not our intention. This is purely for buses at these large events. With that, I think the rest of the testimony I have is primarily duplicative of what's been said already, and I know it's been a long week, so we'll stop and happy to take questions.
Perfect. I think you did a very thorough job. So thank you for that presentation. We do have some questions. We'll start with Assemblymember Gallant.
Thanks, Chair. I sit in on these hearings and I'm just always flabbergasted about the level of regulatory burden that Nevada does on everything, right? I mean, we're one of the worst in this nation. So I'm trying to understand how a commercial driver's license in another state is not recognized here in Nevada, and wondering, do all of those states require a federal background check? And also, in terms of truckers and greyhounds, do they require to have a driver's license in every state that they drive through, or just the state that they reside in? I know there was a lot of questions, but I feel like this is all very related.
Thank you, Madam Assembly Member, for the questions. Can I start backwards? Those, and Mr. Enos could probably speak better to the trucking industry and so on, but, oh, I'm sorry, Jeremiah Shirk for the record. Sorry, thank you, sir. Your assessment is correct. There are a number of additional regulation here, duplicative regulation in Nevada that do not exist in other states. In fact, the majority of the states in the country do not require anything additional other than proof of the CDL, etc. That's how Nevada has operated for a really long time. We're not opposed to the driver permit happening here, because it needs to each state can do what they need to do related to allowing that CDL to happen in their home domicile. What we're suggesting here is that those out-of-state folks don't need to go through that, because they've already done that in their respective state, right? And so that's the intent, to make that more in line with the federal regs. I don't know the history, the 100-year history of this behind the NTA and where the NRS and the NAC came. I have some suspicions, but we're not in that world anymore, and these mega events are larger than they've ever been, and that requires an adjustment here in order for people to be successful and hopefully for the state to thrive. I think I answered most of your questions. There might have been one more in there I missed. If you would repeat it, I'd be happy.
I'm curious, like with trucking and greyhounds, like that's a commercial license as well. Are they required to get a license here in Nevada?
I am not
They're
a
just
subject
passing
matter
through?
expert. I'm sorry, Jeremiah Shirk for the record. I'm not a subject matter expert in that area. It's my understanding, though, that they are not required to do additional work, to your point, anecdotally.
I see Mr. Enos back there. He'll probably pop up at some point or get that information to everyone. So thank you. Next, we'll go to Vice Chair Carter.
Thank you. And kind of the opposite of what we just heard, I believe that Nevada is supposed to be for Nevadans, not accommodating exporting jobs. And that's my concern, is I don't see anything in here to protect Nevada businesses and Nevada jobs. It sounds like we're just saying, hey, let's modify it and let anybody who wants to come in here. And you brought up the big events. Those big events are supposed to create economic activity in Nevada, not for outside entities. So where are the protections for Nevadans?
Jeremiah Shirk for the record. I appreciate the question. It's a reasonable question and fair, and we agree with you that the Nevadans need to have this work. Related to the industry, there is not enough capacity in the state of Nevada to come close to fulfilling the needs and requirements of these events like this. And different than some industries, it's a whole lot cheaper to use everything you have locally, because a bus coming from another state is time and fuel that has to be paid for by my client and or the event owner. So from a business model perspective, it makes 0 sense to go outside of the state if the capacity is here. And I'll just remind everyone of Mr. Carney's testimony related to, in a post-COVID world, the restriction or the contraction of the bus industry for various reasons, COVID, events canceling or moving, insurance requirements and the like, has shrunk that industry significantly, and unclear if it will recover or ever recover. This is an opportunity to try to help Nevada be successful in that way, to create the economic ability to thrive that you mentioned. So it is the intent of our client and so on to have as many people in Nevada and those operators that work here that can for every single one of these events. I would also argue, just anecdotally, most of those folks are already busy, because we're talking about Southern Nevada and Las Vegas. So they already have clients and other things that they're working on, which doesn't allow them to increase their capacity to do more. That's what we know from the industry. That's what we've heard from LCBA and others, and the busing associations and so on. And then there's that constriction of drivers as well, not just from the vehicle side. And thank you for the question.
I heard a lot about intent, but this is a legislative body, and intent doesn't protect anybody. Is there any pieces of this that does protect Nevadans, Nevada working men and women?
Thank you for allowing me a moment. Jeremiah Shirk for the record. It is noted here that in the NRS, the language in front of you, that these are fully regulated. This is only for fully regulated carriers that have authority to operate in Nevada and have worked in Nevada, and have gone through all the steps that everyone that does work here in Nevada. So those folks are operating today. It does not allow illegal operators and folks to just fly by night and roll in here. And Mr. Scott alluded to it as well. This also does not impact the inspection and/or enforcement arm of the NTA to ensure that we are protecting the Nevadans and the folks that are doing this work as well.
Thank you. I'm going to follow up on the Vice Chair's line of questioning briefly. So just to confirm, this is not something that you're looking to do, but this is something that that you in particular have already done, right? And so you already provide these transportation services for these large events. And so this isn't necessarily about expanding, but it's about the process involved in getting your drivers and vehicles certified to service these mega events, for lack of a better term. Is that correct?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. Jeremiah Shirk for the record. That's correct. T1 TMS is a fully regulated carrier in the state of Nevada, and it has been for a number of years. And this is ongoing work for those folks.
Thank you. And then the other question I have is, I see that this is related to short-term lease. Do you have any, is there a current definition, or do you have any insight that you can provide into that short-term lease? Because I think similar to some of the questions from the Vice Chair, understanding that there's, you've talked about some of these large events that are relatively short duration. I think having a sense that of what short-term means, so that it cannot be extended to be long-term, would probably be helpful.
Thanks, Chair. Scott Gillis for the record. I'll step in again with this conceptual amendment. I searched through NRS 706, Chapter 706. I didn't see per se a specific definition of a short-term lease. I may have missed it. What I did see was a definition of a long-term lease related to, I think, other types of transportation areas within 706. The long-term lease was, I believe, defined as more than 30 days, so we tried to just create a shortcut here. Again, I think if LCB determines that a proper new definition for a short-term lease for this purpose is needed, we can do that. And happy to do that, but that was in essence why we came up with this concept of a short-term lease, 30 days or less.
Thank you. So that's helpful. 30 days or less. We'll take, and we'll maybe continue that conversation as we move forward. Assemblymember Dickman.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And my questions really were kind of asked by Vice Chair Carter, but I do have concerns about harming our local carriers. And so, I mean, is there anything that would guarantee them preference, you know, like, let's say we need 500 buses for this thing, and there's 100 Nevada buses available. Would you only bring in 400 then? Or would you bring in the 500 because you have the ability and our 100 Nevada buses would not get any business?
Stephen Carney for the record. We have a procurement department, and I'm just speaking on behalf of TMS, T1 Transportation. And like Jeremiah has spoken to, economically, it doesn't make sense for us to want to bring out-of-state buses in when there is availability in the local market. It's very expensive, and so we can look at whether there's an ability to put something in there to have those protections. I'm not sure, you know, what avenues we would be able to do, you know, for everyone. But certainly for us in our experience, we've made every opportunity for all other local operators who have the proper authority to be a part of all the events that we have, including EDC. We wish there were more vehicles to have less work for us and less expense for the client owners who are putting on these major events. Yep, thank you.
Well,
Assemblymember.
actually, it's not really a follow-up. It's so if you were, had to buy tires here, would you be contributing to our fund?
Assemblymember, if I may, Scott Gills for the record. I wanted to go back and answer your question directly about does this bill or does state law have a preference, create a preference for in-state buses and in-state drivers? It does not. Current status quo that preference doesn't exist. I think from my client's experience, and I know there's many other operators that this bill will impact besides them, but from their perspective, what Mr. Shirk said was, if there are in-state buses and drivers, they will prefer to use them because it will cost them and will cost the event operators much less money than to bring, 100 buses from Texas, including time for the driver, extra time renting the bus, and obviously the fuel costs involved. So it's really the market that is going to create the preference for in-state drivers and buses. But to answer your question, neither this bill or existing law that I'm aware of creates a preference for in-state drivers or buses. A legal preference.
Quick.
As long as it's not about tires, go ahead.
Well, so I was just kind of thinking, so do you get contracts for these, for so many buses for, say, the Electric Daisy? And if you do, would you ever use our local bus companies to fulfill part of that contract? Or no?
Stephen Carney for the record. As far as that question goes, we do have contracts that we send out to all local Nevada operators that we use for our events. And so they don't require the short-term lease agreements. But as far as for TMS, we do events all throughout the country. And so we do not have our own assets, motor coaches. We're kind of an event management and logistics firm for TMS. And so we're able to utilize operators throughout the country to fulfill the bus requirements for our events, much like we do in Nevada with T1 Transportation.
Thank you. Thanks, Chair. Appreciate the.
Thank you. We'll take the tire bit offline. We'll go to Assemblymember Backus, then Assemblymember Urick.
Thank you so much, Chair. I couldn't help but check the definitions. The weird part is I'm just looking at subsection 1 that is kind of refers to a short-term lease, and that is inclusive of a person, which I'm just not used to seeing it that way. Rather, it seems like it would be like a contract for service or contract or an independent contract would make more sense, because under chapter 706, it like refers to NRS 482.053 for short-term leases. And so that would be any lease of a vehicle for less than 31 days. And in this situation, I just want to make sure that the intent of this bill, and it makes it kind of sense, is for like short-term events. There's no intent to utilize kind of this language where you have the short-term lease of a 31 days, and it's like multiple times during the year to make it a permanent type of situation.
Jeremiah Shirk for the record. That's correct. There's no, and it also doesn't make sense. Fair question. Related to the event world, to Mr. Carney's testimony, the bus and the driver have to come together, and so this helps simplify that related to these the mega events and the leasing discussion. And the statute that you referenced, that's the kind of the purchase of the vehicle, and we're using the vehicle and the driver more as a service rather than the asset itself. The distinction there is important, particularly related to the event space. Did that help answer your question?
Thank you. It did. I just wanted to make sure, because I could see where a company may, whatever it may be, I'm not in this space, so I don't know how regulated it is, and to avoid maybe some of our permanent regulations in place is to kind of utilize this and say, oh, we're doing these 31-day short-term leases, we're out, we're in, kind of thing. That's what I was just making sure. It's not
If I may add to that, my answer, please. Jeremiah Shirk for the record. That's fair, and also remember the NTA sits over the top of this with full approval of these as well, and so they would also be the backstop related to anything nefarious or illegal against their regs that might be happening here, to the example that you gave. So we're not taking away the NTA's ability or authority to make sure that everything falls in line respectfully to those type of agreements.
Thank you. And again, I think that's just been sourced as something to continue to look at as or if this moves forward. Because I think as legislators, we just also want to be cautious that we are not creating a legal framework that could lead to that being completely allowed, even understanding that that is not the intent, right? So next we'll go to Assemblymember Yurick.
Thank you so much, Chair. And I'm going to confess, I'm really ignorant to this stuff. And what I'm hearing from all my colleagues up here, it sounds like we're all asking kind of the same types of questions. And they're much more sophisticated than I am, and a lot of them have experience on this committee, and I don't. So, Chair, with your permission, I just have two questions. And I think I'm asking the same question that has been asked, but in a way that hopefully my brain can understand. And specifically, I hear you guys saying it sounds like a logical issue, right? We've got these big events that, especially Southern Nevada is notorious for. We've got, the Indy race, we've got EDC and all these things where we just don't have the supply to meet that demand of when these tourists come in and all of that. So it's meant for these large events, large buses, but I'm like reading this amendment and I'm seeing it like I see the reference to the word buses, but I don't see any limit to sizes or things like that. And then large events, I don't see it that. I see that is possibly addressed in the 30-day event window. And so I'm always just curious, what do I not know, right? And what could be another way, as the chair just kind of mentioned, we're setting up a legal structure and a framework that could ultimately result in an unfair competitive advantage for somebody like TMS against what our vice chair is expressing concern on, a preference to really provide jobs and resources and opportunities for our local residents. And so can you just, question one, Chair, sorry about the long, that part, but can you just address would anything in this effort and the way it is structured create or give TMS, because of the economy of scale, their access to out-of-state resources, an unfair competitive or market advantage over other folks here that don't have those resources?
Scott Gillis for the record. Assemblyman, I'll try to answer the question. If I'm not answering it, please let me know, and I'll try to be more specific. We did not try to provide a definition of a bus tied to existing law in 706 right now. Again, I would leave that to the LCB drafters to make sure we're covering the correct vehicles. And if in our discussions with them, they believe that it needs to be refined in a way, that definition, when it's codified, we'll certainly work through that with them. I think we talked about trying to identify, a scale of an event based on a number of buses that makes sense to kind of more narrowly tailor this provision to that. I think events are so different, and yes, not all events need 500 buses like EDC, but I think we had a hard time trying to distinguish between, is the right number 50 buses, and is the number of buses the right measure of how to define this, the exemption for a particular size or type of event. So we stayed away from that in our conceptual amendment for those reasons. And did that answer your question?
Yeah, I think so. And I think I'd actually like to follow up offline just to maybe get another opportunity outside of this last minute reading to try to do that. The only other question I have for the record is, does this propose, I mean, again, reducing the administrative regulatory burdens and trying to help shorten that time frame, I get it. Does this proposed amendment, does this also get TMS out from any other fees, taxes, or, again, I'm not sure how it works. Does it get out from any of those sorts of things?
Jeremiah Shirk, for the record, it does not.
And I'll follow that up, Scott Gillis, for the record, if I may, and just to point out, again, we added that language into subsection 2A to clarify that we are by no means trying to remove the requirement of providing a fingerprint by these drivers and the criminal background check that comes with it in a separate section of law. We're not trying to touch that at all. Just want to get that clear on the record.
Thank you. Members, any additional questions? Very impressive Thursday of a deadline week. Thorough vetting of a piece of this policy. Thank you all for your answers. With that, we will now move on to testimony. We'll begin with testimony in support of Assembly Bill 524. If anyone would like to provide testimony in support, either here in Carson City or down in Las Vegas, please come forward. Seeing nobody coming forward at this time, AVH, would anyone like to provide testimony in support of AB 524 by phone?
Chair, the public line is open and working, but we have no callers at this time.
All right, thank you. We'll now move to testimony in opposition of Assembly Bill 524. Anyone wishing to provide testimony in opposition, either in Carson City or down in Las Vegas, please come forward. Okay, there we go. We've got some people coming. We'll start here in Carson City. Whenever you're ready, please go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. Good afternoon to members of the committee. My name is Harrison Bohn, Harrison from Brownstein, and I'm here representing My Ride to Work. We're still reviewing the amendment, but My Ride to Work is opposed to AB 524, and we've also submitted an opposition letter on the record. We have concerns as it relates to the Nevada Transportation Authority's role in rulemaking and enforcement going forward. As a Nevada-based contract motor carrier, we have a long-standing commitment to safe, compliant, and professional transportation across the state. We employ full-time W-2 drivers, maintain a local fleet, and comply fully with the NTA's rigorous regulatory structure, including permitting, driver background checks, and safety standards. Although we understand and appreciate the intent of this bill, we are here in opposition. Nevada's industry for common motor carriers is highly regulated and highly competitive. Our industry plays an integral role in the Nevada economy, including contributing a significant amount to our tax base. We also believe that this bill, with the amendment, can give an unfair advantage in the market. It is imperative that our industry is safe, secure, reliable, and transparent. We fear that with this bill, that it will create an exception to established, well-worked regulatory systems that could end up undermining the system as a whole, and it goes beyond just large events. Jobs could be lost, passengers harmed, and significant tax revenue lost. To the extent that our regulated industry participants need to do better to meet the demands of these types of events that this bill is seeking to accommodate, like EDC, we'll welcome that conversation and pledge to work with the stakeholders. I'll be following up with Scott Gillis following this to stay engaged in these conversations. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you very much for your testimony. Seeing no one else coming forward here in Carson City, we'll now move down to Las Vegas. Please go ahead whenever you're ready.
Chair, members of the committee, my name is Brian Hardy, Hardy. And I am with the law firm of Marquis Arbach. We've represented owners, operators, and drivers in the transportation industry for more than a decade. We work with the Nevada Transportation Authority and its wonderful staff and commissioners on a very frequent basis. What is not fair to the NTA or the industry is to attempt to undertake a complete overhaul that AB 524 has done within just hours of this hearing. Now we learn in a last-minute Section 5 as to what's been received only a few hours ago. Simply put, the proposed language does not fix a bill that was designed and targeted to favor out-of-state businesses and drivers over Nevadans. And this bill appears now to be based upon the assumption that Nevada businesses cannot or will not be able to handle Nevada events. Hardworking members of the Nevada transportation industry work every day relying upon events such as Super Bowl, F1, EDC, and others to help keep them and their businesses and their families in the black. Under the regulations, Nevada operators and drivers are open and available to the public 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. They are vested on a daily basis in the service and protection of the traveling public, not just when it's most profitable. They are there for those who need a ride, whether that's a ride to church, a doctor's appointment, or bingo night, whenever and wherever they need that ride. This bill allows out-of-state operators and drivers to cherry-pick the most profitable events, flock into the state, and without any day-to-day investment in Nevada, pillage and plunder the transportation work relied upon by Nevadans. Moreover, there is nothing in this bill which would prohibit the stacking of short-term leases such that they become monthly operators without becoming a fully licensed operator. There is simply no limitation to a single short-term lease per year or some other basis. It's not in here because this bill has not been vetted. However, worse than that, this bill allows them to do so without having to meet all of the requirements placed on local owners, operators, and drivers. Compliance with these regulations costs business owners time and money on a daily, weekly, and monthly basis in Nevada. And most importantly, these requirements are designed to protect the traveling public. Without requiring out-of-state operators to meet every requirement placed on Nevada business owners, operators, and drivers, thus, this bill does not create a fair and equal playing field, but instead places Nevada at a disadvantage. Rather than giving out-of-state operators and drivers this unnecessary competitive advantage by eliminating requirements designed to protect the traveling public and Nevada businesses, I call upon you to look out for the Nevada business owners and Nevada workers by stopping this bill from moving forward. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you for your testimony. Okay, I see someone else coming forward. If anyone else wishes to provide testimony in opposition down in Las Vegas, please take your seat. Sir, go ahead whenever you're ready.
I'll do that. Good afternoon, members of the committee. My name is James Jimerson. My office is in Las Vegas, Nevada, in Summerlin. I have the privilege of representing and owning Jacob Transportation Services, LLC, and various other companies that provide transportation in Nevada, and particularly in Clark County, but throughout the state. When I review this statute, I review this proposed statute, and I review the concept behind it, you get a sense of it, an attempt to use an elephant gun for a mouse, to kill a mouse. It is so overblown. There is no justification that's been provided to you through the testimony of Messrs. Gillis, Carney, and Shirt today as to why this is necessary. We heard that per driver, there might be 12 to 30 pieces of paper that might be involved. That's what we heard their testimony to be today. We're not told that if you pass this bill, it'll save 29 pages, 16 pages, 9 pages, or no pages. And there's no justification that's been provided to support the public interest, which is to protect Nevada's drivers and the riding public. That's what the statute is all about under NRS 706 and NAC 706. You have not heard one sentence from these three gentlemen with regard to how Nevada's public policy of protecting its ridership will be benefited by your passing and making this huge exception that swallows up the rule and the legislative favor that's being asked of you. And you must ask yourself, in discharging your responsibilities, I submit, why is that? What are the advantages? Assemblyman asked the question, isn't this going to be helpful in terms of reducing bureaucracy? I'm in favor of that. I think most people are in favor of that, but not at the expense of the riding public. When we talk about the qualifications and the requirements of the NTA, they are detailed, they're time-ridden, and they are more complete than the federal regulations. One statement I'm confident that these proponents will never tell you is that the federal regulations are identical or the same weight and detail as the state regulations. The state regulations protect the riding public far more so. They cover qualifications of drivers that are far more expansive and extensive than that of the federal rules. And the state rules are necessitated. It's why you have the state agency to protect the riding public, because the federal regulations do not do so besides absolute minimums like licensure. But a recent conviction for robbery or murder is not something that's disqualified on the federal level, as shocking as that might sound. So this is the reason why you have a state agency in the Nevada Transportation Authority. It's why they are charged with the responsibility that you've given them, a serious responsibility. And it's why, in our judgment, this statute fails miserably, or proposed statute, conceptual statute, fails miserably to meet the needs of the riding public. It may meet the needs of TCM. It does not meet the needs of competitors here. And I can represent to you that the opportunity to provide this type of service.
Mr. Jemerson, can you wrap up your remarks, please?
I will. Has not been proffered to many of the companies who are here in the audience here observing today's proceedings. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I did not mean to exceed my 2 minutes, and I thank you, sir, very much. And thank all of you for listening.
Thank you. That was definitely past 2 minutes, but it's okay. Okay, and if anyone else would like to provide testimony in opposition there, we have 2 other seats, so please come forward so I can see how many people we have left. Go ahead whenever you're ready.
Good afternoon, Chair Watts, Vice Chair Carter, and the honorable members of the committee. My name is Danielle Fawcett. I'm the owner of Personal Sedan Services, a fully licensed and regulated transportation company based here in Las Vegas. I'm speaking as an individual business owner and an operator with deep roots in this state and this industry. We've proudly operated in Las Vegas since 1999, beginning with just 2 vehicles, and over the years have expanded over into a 30-car license, as well as an unlimited bus license. We've recently now are operating into SUVs and our bus license as well. What bothers me about this bill more than anything is 2 hours prior to arriving, we see all of a sudden there's a change where they're not after the limousine certified carriers, SUVs, or small businesses here, which seems very strange to me right when we're walking into the building that there's changes. Why now? What's the change? Why didn't this information come in the last 2 years when they were working towards this bill? I can personally say that my office has never received a call or an RFP from TMS looking for our services. I'm sure they don't have my number because I certainly don't have theirs. So for them to state that they're looking out for fellow local carriers, I'm sorry, I can personally say that is not true from personal experience. This isn't just a business to us. It's a commitment to public safety, to compliance, and to the well-being of our employees and our visitors. We meet every requirement by the Nevada Transportation Authority, from our office hours to our insurance coverage, from driver vetting to vehicle inspections. We are opposed to AB 524. This bill opens the door for out-of-state operators to enter into Nevada during peak events without being held to the same safety, insurance, or operational standards we must meet every day. It creates an uneven playing field and a dangerous loophole that places the public safety at risk. Why would somebody want to use a local business, such as ourselves, on a daily basis when they're working with TMS, and TMS doesn't work with any other carriers, or at least us small businesses in the state and here in Las Vegas? Let me be clear, if something goes wrong today with one of our vehicles, there's a clear line of accountability. The NTA can trace license plate, vehicle numbers, the company name. They can act swiftly. The oversight protects 50 million visitors who travel to our state each year. But under AB 524, that protection vanishes. Out-of-state companies with no local offices, no compliance, no regulatory insurance coverage, and no accountability would be transporting our guests. And when something happens, and something will, there will be no recourse. The bill will hurt us small businesses like ours who follow the rules, invest in our teams, and operate with integrity. It rewards those who seek shortcuts and undermines years of efforts from operators who have played by the book. TMS has been bringing vehicles over for many of years into EDC. I find it kind of ironic that they're just trying to create a bigger shortcut for themselves to make it easier instead of worrying about the public safety. This will cripple jobs, threaten public safety, and strip away the trust tourists have in Nevada transportation providers. We're not just a transportation company, we're a part of the Nevada economy, paying state taxes, payroll taxes, employing hardworking residents who rely on us to earn a living. Nevada should not be supporting businesses from other states over its own. We are here, we are regulated, and we are accountable. This bill would abandon those principles and put both our livelihoods and our visitors in jeopardy. I respectfully urge you to do not let this bill pass. Protect our businesses, protect our workers, and most importantly, protect the public. Thank you.
Thank you. Next
Chair.
person, please go ahead.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, members of the committees, good afternoon. My name is Brent Carson. I'm a local attorney down in Las Vegas. I represent probably 20 to 30 limousine and bus companies regularly before the Nevada Transportation Authority. I've been doing this work for over 2 decades, and in the 20-plus years, the Nevada Transportation Authority has long presented that the need for safety and the protection of the traveling public is of paramount importance. It is of so much importance that you guys, the legislature via NRS 706151 in the declaration, the legislative declaration mandates that one of the Nevada Transportation Authority's jobs, role is to protect the safety and welfare of the traveling public. And to do so, the legislature granted the Nevada Transportation the exclusive authority to create regulations as they see fit, which best accommodates their duty to protect the traveling public. And in doing so, they created these regulations which require vehicle files, driver permits, background checks, everything that we're talking about here today. That is what the legislature granted the NTA the exclusive jurisdiction to do so. And so now we have an out-of-state company who doesn't want to go through what he called the normal licensing requirements. These normal licensing requirements are the things that we do on a daily basis to ensure the protection of the traveling public. Get one thing straight. We're talking about tourism, #1 industry. What's more important than protecting them? A few shortcuts? No. Out-of-state companies want to come in on these major events when we're here 365 days event and make money off of the events, off of Vegas's back, off of Reno's backs, everybody's backs, and they want to come in here and then they want you guys, not the NTA, who's in charge of these mandates, to make it easier for them to come in and work for Nevada. I just say, and on behalf of all of my companies that I represent, we're here. We don't care if they want to try to come in, but they have to play by the same rules. You cannot carve out an exception for one company which favors them over another company. There are a dozen of my clients here in the galley. You've already heard pretty much what everybody's talking about. I don't know if they're going to come up here and testify or not, but one thing you guys, this bill has done, and I've never seen it in 20+ years, is it has united this industry against a single cause. They want to be fair. That's all they want. If they want to play by the rules, they want to come in and get our money, take our jobs, take all of our stuff, play by the same rules that we have to play by 365 days a year. Thank you. If you have any further questions, I'm here.
Thank you very much. Please go ahead.
Good afternoon. My name is Taju, and I represent Silver State Limousine, Las Vegas, Nevada-based small business in the licensed transportation industry. We are here today because we are deeply concerned about the direction this bill is taking and what it means for the future of our state or our business and our residents. We are local business that pay Nevada state taxes, follow strict regulation, conduct vehicle inspection, and carrying proper insurance to ensure the safety of every single ride who steps into our vehicles. We are not asking for handout. We are asking for fairness, protection, and the ability to continue serving our community. Nevada is a strict city. We are home to some of the world's largest convention major event and millions of tourists each year. This visitor really on us to provide safe, regulated, and professional transportation. But this bill passed, it's opened the door to out-of-state company and unregulated driver, people who are not held to the same standard, who don't pay tax here, and who are only here to profit of Nevada while giving nothing back. We have seen firsthand the danger of illegal operators, driver with no insurance, no background checks, many of whom are involved in the drug use, sex trafficking, or sleep deprived and unsafe behind the wheel. Tourists don't know the difference, but you do. And it is your responsibility to protect them by ensuring only proper vetted, insured professionals are allowed to operate on the road. This bill passed, our industry will collapse, our employee dispatch, driver, office staff will lose their job, family will suffer, we will no longer be able to pay payroll tax, contribute the local economy, or provide safe transportation option for the public. Our city will crumble under the weight of unsafe, unregulated transportation choice. We're asking you today, who is protecting us? Who is protecting the travel public? Nevada should be standing behind Nevada business, not allow out-of-state companies to come in during the major event, taking revenue home, and leave us with the consequence. Support your local workers, support the safety of the street, and please oppose this bill. Thank you.
Thank you. Again, if anyone wants to testify in opposition, please come up and sit in the chairs. Thank you. Please go ahead.
Good afternoon, Assembly. My name is Alan Waxler. I'm the President, CEO, and owner of AWG Ambassador. We're 40 years in Las Vegas combined. I started EDC in 2011 and did that service for them for 6 years. We brought in the buses. We went through all the process. We had no issues. We didn't look for any shortcuts, and it worked. I don't have anything written, prepared. I'm just speaking straight from the heart. I believe that you don't fix something that's not broke. The NTA does a fine job. They know when these events, as they call them, are coming to town, but it's just one event. It's a very unique event. It's 25 miles out of town. It requires a lot of seats. I'm going to leave you on this note. TMS has never called my office once. I have about 50 buses. So we do our business, and I think you should oppose this bill. And thank you for your time.
Thank you for your comments, sir.
Good afternoon. My name is David Amberber. Good afternoon, Chair Watts, Vice Chair Carter, and honorable member of the committee. Most of the speakers that say, and I'm representing Limo-Fi LLC, the local limousine company here in Vegas. Most of the speakers said about the issue. I'm here just simply opposing this bill. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, another person. If there's anybody else that's thinking about testifying in opposition, please take the seat. Go ahead whenever you're ready, sir.
Good afternoon. My name is David Seelinger. I'm the chairman, CEO, and owner of Empire Las Vegas. I'm CPC on number 1054, an unlimited license here in Las Vegas. The complete overhaul of AB 524 hours before a hearing does not fix a bill that continues to favor out-of-state businesses over Nevadans. Hardworking members of the Nevada transportation industry work every day relying upon events such as Super Bowl, F1, EDC, and others to help keep them and their businesses and families in the black. This bill allows out-of-state operators and drivers to cherry pick the most profitable events, converge into the state without any day-to-day investment in Nevada, and steal the work relied upon by Nevadans. However, worse than that, this bill allows them to do so while bypassing the requirements placed on local owners, operators, and drivers, which protect the traveling public, our main priority on a daily basis. Thus giving out of state operators a leg up on the local competition, rather that giving out of state operators and driver benefits. We call upon you to look out for Nevada business owners and Nevada workers by stopping this bill from moving forward. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you for your comments, sir. Okay, now, seeing no one else coming forward in Las Vegas, AVH, would anyone like to provide testimony in opposition to AB 524 by phone?
Chair, the public line is still open and working, but we have no callers.
Okay, we'll now move to testimony in neutral on Assembly Bill 524. Anyone wishing to provide neutral testimony, either here in Carson City or down in Las Vegas, please come forward. Good to see you, Mr. Sever. Please proceed whenever you're ready.
All right, good afternoon, Chair, committee members. Sean Sever from the Nevada DMV. We are neutral on AB 524. This bill initially generated a lot of discussion around the DMV, and we thought it might be repealing our ability to register our licensees and our truckers. We realize we still have NRS 706.491 to allow for the continuation of collecting fees. So this results in yet another zero impact fiscal note from the DMV. Thanks.
Thank you. Mr. Enos, go ahead.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. For the record, I'm Paul Enos, and I'm just here because I got assigned some homework while I was sitting in the back. So, talk about CDLs. So you can only have a CDL in one state. And how it works is it is regulated by the Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration, but they regulate minimums. So not every type of criminal conviction that we do prevent in federal law or in state law is on the federal side. So, we have minimums, things like, drug trafficking, killing somebody with a commercial motor vehicle, human trafficking, those are federal prohibitions. But those other standards that we have are set by the state and set by the Nevada Transportation Authority. So, things like, a robbery conviction, dishonesty, identity theft. I mean, those are all things that they take into consideration. So if somebody wants to get their CDL in Nevada, be domiciled here, you can still operate a vehicle with the CDL across the country, but being domiciled in our state, you have to be a resident for at least 30 days, and you have to, at minimum, take a skills test, provide your medical certificate. So, there are those requirements if you are going to domicile here, but, a person can operate throughout the country. Now, for passenger transportation that we're talking about today, it is regulated by the Nevada Transportation Authority, and those regulations are more stringent than what is in federal law.
All right, thank you very much. A+, Mr. Enos. Seeing no one coming forward in Las Vegas, AVH, would anyone like to provide neutral testimony on AB 524 by phone?
Chair, we have no callers to testify in neutral.
All right, with that, I'm going to close the hearing on Assembly Bill 524. Thank you. That brings us to the last item on our agenda today, which is public comment. Anyone who would like to make public comment, either here in Carson City or down in Las Vegas, feel free to come forward. Seeing no one coming forward at this time, AVH, would anyone like to provide public comment by phone?
Chair, the public line is still open and working, but we have no callers for public comment.
Okay, that concludes our business for today. We will be holding a meeting tomorrow at call of the chair. As soon as we get a sense of when that will be, we will get that out to members of this committee and members of the public. Members of the committee, as we're continuing to work through some of those things, just please keep an eye on your email and other things so we can get information out to you about what will be up for consideration. And finally, happy birthday to my mom. Love you, Mom. And seeing no other business before us, we're adjourned.